Good afternoon, or early evening as the case may be. My name is Steve Lookner. We're here at Right Side Broadcasting. We are coming to you with some breaking news coverage. It just was released a few minutes ago. It just came out that the Ninth Circuit Court said that by the end of business day today, they will be coming out with their ruling about President Trump's travel ban. So, and just in terms of timing, this circuit court is located in Washington, in Seattle. So this circuit court, actually I should make sure, I know it's on the West Coast. I'm not sure about the exact city, so I'll check that. But I know it's on the West Coast. So we need to, when they say by the end of business day today, they mean by 5 p.m. Pacific time, which is by 7 p.m. Central time, by 8 p.m. Eastern time. However, it could be earlier. They said it's going to be, they will have the decision out by the end of the business day, Pacific time today. But that could mean earlier. I'd actually seen some things early in the week which said that the plan was to say they were going to announce the decision 60 to 90 minutes before they actually did. So if that holds, that would suggest that like in the next hour to hour and a half, their decision would come out. So we wanted to come on, bring you that news, talk about this decision some, and get your comments as well. So if you would like to, during our coverage of this at any time, write in. You can contact me, and I'm happy to read your comments as long as they're clean. Happy to try to answer your questions as best you can. So would love to hear your feedback on this. You want to do that one of two ways. You can go to Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Lookner, @LOOKNER. Follow me while you're if you're there. Go to Twitter @Lookner and direct message me, and I will get your message. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. It's down on your screen there, both of those ways of reaching me. And we'd love to get your feedback while we're covering this. So let's just let's take a step back and repeat what we're covering here. So the Ninth Circuit of Court of Appeals has said that they will, by the end of business day today, Pacific time, so by 5 p.m. Pacific time today, they will release the ruling on President Trump's travel ban. Now, it's important to remember what specifically they're ruling on today. So, going back to the beginning, I want to say about a week and a half ago, was it, that President Trump came out with an executive order, signed an executive order, which is now we're calling the travel ban. And this executive order had three different parts. It had multiple parts, but the three parts, most important parts, were limits on people coming to the country. One was no refugees from anywhere for the next 120 days. One part was no refugees from Syria indefinitely. And one part was no immigrants whatsoever, refugee or non-refugee, from 7 different countries for the next 90 days. And those 7 different countries were predominantly Muslim countries, and they included Iraq, Iran, Syria, I believe Sudan, but I don't have the list right in front of me. So, but you can look it up if you'd like. There were 7 predominantly Muslim countries, which the ban said people from those countries, nobody can enter this country from those countries in the next 90 days. No citizens. So even if people were here and they happened to be visiting there, they couldn't come back in if they weren't American citizens during the next 90 days. And we heard that there were perhaps going to be some leniency on people with green cards and that kind of thing. But that's the basic idea is that travel ban executive order came out, I want to say about a week and a half ago. And then towards the end of last week, a federal judge in Seattle came out with a ruling, and that judge's ruling put into effect a temporary restraining order on President Trump's travel ban. So once that ruling came out, the travel ban could no longer be enforced nationwide. That was a temporary restraining order. And that temporary restraining order was supposed to last probably around 15 days. I believe it said in the temporary restraining order that within 15 days, the federal court proceeding on the actual travel ban would begin. So the temporary restraining order does not itself say whether the travel ban itself is legal or not. The court still has to decide on that. The temporary restraining order it basically says, roughly speaking, we here in the federal court feel like there's a chance this temporary restraining order might be over. We feel here in the federal court that it might turn out that the federal court will say the travel ban is not legal. And because we think there's a certain degree of likeliness of this, we think it should be restrained. It should not be put into effect until the court actually decides for good whether this travel ban is legal or not. So this temporary restraining order went into effect, and it's only designed to be in effect for a couple of weeks until the court actually decides for real whether the travel ban is legal or not. And once that temporary restraining order came out, the Trump administration, obviously didn't want the temporary restraining order to take effect because they want the travel ban to be enforced starting now. So the Trump administration, and they did this through the Justice Department, asked the court to not. So what they did is, so the federal district court, that's the lowest level of federal court, came out with this ruling, temporary restraining order on travel ban. And then the Trump administration, through the Justice Department, appealed this, and they went to the appeals court. So in the federal court system, you have the district courts, and there's like 90-something of those. Then you have the circuit courts, which are the appeals court, and there's like 13 of those. And then there's one Supreme Court. So if you don't like something that happened in the district court, you can appeal to the circuit court. And that's what President Trump's administration did. So, and again, I just want to say we're covering the breaking news that sometime today, before 5 p.m. Pacific time, before the close of business day Pacific time, the appeals court, the Ninth Circuit Court, will come out with their ruling on the temporary restraining order of Trump's travel ban. So, just to clarify what that ruling is on today, Trump's travel ban came out like a week and a half ago. Then this federal judge in Seattle put a temporary restraining order on it and said for like the next couple weeks, can't enforce a travel ban. The Trump administration challenged that ruling in the circuit court. And they said, hey, circuit court, we think the district court judge made a wrong call when the district court judge said, put a temporary restraining order on that travel ban. And so what's at issue today is, will this temporary restraining order be allowed to stand? That's what it's at issue today, is will this temporary restraining order, which for the next couple weeks will not allow the travel ban to be enforced, will that be allowed to stand or not? That is what the appeals court is ruling on. And the oral arguments, which you might have listened to, I believe, on Tuesday, those oral arguments that were broadcast live on the court's streaming YouTube site, those are from this appeals court case. So those oral arguments were about whether this temporary restraining order should be allowed to stand or not. So that's what we're hearing about today. So just keep in mind when the court comes out with its ruling today, they're not ruling on whether Trump's travel ban executive order is legal or not. What they're ruling on is whether this temporary restraining order will be allowed to stand. Now, it's certainly possible that if they rule one way or the other, that gives a suggestion on how the federal courts will rule on the travel ban itself. If they come out today and say, hey, we think the temporary restraining order should stand, and here's why, and in doing so, I believe there'll be some explanation of their ruling. In doing so, they say, well, we think the temporary restraining order should stand because we think that it might turn out that it's likely to turn out that the travel ban, when the district court hears this case, will be ruled to be illegal. Then we could maybe read in from that something about what will happen in the future court case on the federal level about whether the travel ban itself is legal. But today's decision is just about whether this temporary restraining order will be allowed to stand for the next couple weeks. And another thing to know is that whatever the circuit court says, the Court of Appeals says about today, about the temporary restraining order, it is possible to appeal that ruling and take it to the Supreme Court if the Supreme Court decides to hear the appeal. So, for example, if the appeals court comes out today and says, we agree with the district court judge, we agree with this temporary restraining order on the travel ban, the temporary restraining order stands, the Trump administration could, in theory, appeal to the Supreme Court. There's been some question about whether they'll actually do that or not, but that option is open to them. So we're very interested in hearing, I'm sure you're interested in hearing what this ruling is going to be. No one knows what it's going to be. Will the temporary restraining order be upheld? Will the temporary restraining order be done away with, and will the appeals court say, we think that the district court made a mistake and there should be no temporary restraining order? Will there be some kind of in-between ruling where they say, well, we're going to uphold the temporary restraining order on this part of the travel ban, but do away with the temporary restraining order on this other part of the travel ban? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see what's going to happen, but it will be announced today. The breaking news is that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals will today, by the end of today, release their ruling on the temporary restraining order on Trump's travel ban. And because I want to look this up myself, I want to see where, because I'm going to be saying it a lot, court location. Where is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals location? I believe it is in Seattle, but I want to make sure. I just looked it up, and it is... you know what? I was wrong. It is in San Francisco. Well, I'm glad I looked it up. Hey, I'll be honest with you. Actually, but now it's saying that there's other locations. There's one in Seattle and there's one in Portland. So I'm not sure where this ruling will emanate from today. I don't have that for you. But maybe I'll check it up. If somebody wants to write in where the ruling is emanating from today exactly, feel free to let me know. So, but I guess the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is headquartered in San Francisco. So, again, if you'd like to write in during this coverage, we're planning on hopefully staying with you until this ruling comes out. And so that's our plan right now. If you'd like to write in during this time where we wait for this ruling, you can do so by the two ways at the bottom. We would love to hear your comments and share them with other viewers. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear those too. If you have any predictions, maybe you have a prediction about what the circuit court's going to say today. We can hear your prediction, and then we can either say a couple hours from now that person was a genius or that person had no idea what they were talking about. So be bold, make a prediction. Let's hear what you think. You can do this one of two ways. Reach me, go to @Lookner on Twitter. That's my Twitter handle, @LOOKNER, and direct message me, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. I'm going to do a quick check right now and just see if anybody, we have a few emails, so let me read through them and see, as long as they're clean, I'm happy to share them with you. So we have one here, and this is from Paige Lovelace. Paige Lovelace says, Steve, my comment is this. I think this ban is constitutional, and I'm hoping they rule in Trump's favor. But do you think with the liberal-leaning court that is possible? This is an excellent question by Paige Lovelace. So I should say, by the way, I try to be clear about this, I do not have a law degree. I am not a constitutional law expert. I've tried to read up on this as much as I can, but I cannot answer this as well as, say, somebody who's an expert in constitutional law and appeals court can. So I will do the best I can to answer your questions. If I can't, I will let you know that. So Paige Lovelace wants to know, Paige thinks this ban is constitutional and hopes the ruling is in Trump's favor, but also wants to know, hey, with the liberal-leaning court, is this possible? So from what I have heard, the Ninth Circuit Court does lean liberal. It's a quite liberal court. And I have heard people say that, so for example, I know on Morning Joe this morning, Joe Scarborough was saying he thinks that because that's a liberal court, he thinks it's a slam dunk they're going to rule against Trump on this. But if you think, because the Ninth Circuit Court is liberal, that suggests there's more of a chance of them ruling to uphold, and uphold means to keep, to allow. Because this Ninth Circuit Court is one of the more liberal of the circuit courts, that suggests that they're more likely to uphold the temporary restraining order on the travel ban and rule against the Trump administration today. So, Paige, it's a good question. Perhaps because that circuit court is a liberal-leaning circuit court, that you might think it's less like it's a little bit harder for the Trump administration to win there. But I don't know what's going to happen. And if you listen to the oral arguments that were given a couple days ago, basically in the oral arguments, one lawyer from each side talked to the 3-judge panel that's deciding this case at the appeals court. And the 3-judge panel basically asked both sides tough questions. So you couldn't really tell from the oral arguments where they were leaning. I mean, some people have tried to read into it, but I mean, when I listened to it, I just heard them saying we kind of have issues with both sides, possible issues, and you can't really tell from the oral arguments which way they're going to go. So a great question, Paige. I guess we'll see what happens. And an interesting point. So the Ninth Circuit Court is a liberal-leaning court, and actually, I believe the district where this was made, so the circuit courts are the appeals courts, but below them where the initial decisions are made on lawsuits, those are the district courts, and those vary in how liberal or conservative they are, and also they just vary because they're different courts. And so this ruling that put the temporary restraining order on the travel ban, that just came from one district court, the district court in Seattle. But there were other rulings coming out, and that had come out before that from different courts. And I believe in Massachusetts, a ruling had come out from the district court there a couple days earlier, which had said no temporary restraining order. But the way our law is, the way our legal system is if one of the district courts has the power to enact a temporary restraining order which applies nationally, and I guess it's kind of rare that this happens, but it did happen. So even though, for example, the Massachusetts court said no temporary restraining order, when Seattle came out and said there should be a national temporary restraining order on this, that supersedes like the Massachusetts ruling, and the temporary restraining order is put into effect. That's just the way the law works. But the Trump administration appealed it. It's going to appeals court now. And as our breaking news announcement has been saying, and as you see on our screen right now, the appeals court in the Ninth Circuit Court has promised a decision on this will be released by 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, the close of business day. And so we're just waiting. It could come at any time. It could come in a minute. It could come in an hour and a half or 2 hours. I guess it's 5:42 p.m. Eastern. So the latest it would come is in a little over 2 hours Eastern. But as I mentioned before, I did see something earlier this week which said that the expectation was that the time between the court saying we're going to decide today and the time between the decision itself coming out would be between 60 and 90 minutes. So if that's the case, the decision could come sooner. We'll see what happens. And I want to get to more of your comments. If you want to write in while we're covering this, we'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to hear your questions. We'd love to hear your predictions about what will happen. Go out on a limb, make a prediction. The two ways to do that are go to my Twitter handle @Lookner, @LOOKNER, and DM me, direct message me, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Just need a little sip of water here while we're covering this. Glad to know that my cold is better, and so I'm not completely stuffed up today, and it's much less disgusting for you to watch me. So there were some more comments here. I want to get to them. We have a comment from Fred August, and Fred August writes, do you think Trump's criticism of the courts being overly political is accurate? This is a tough question. So the question is, you're not asking me, do I think it was cool or uncool for President Trump to criticize the courts as overly political? Do you think I think it's accurate? Well, so he didn't say they were overly political. I don't think he used the word overly, Fred. I believe he just said political. So, strictly speaking, if he said they're political, I do think politics can play a role in the sense of, maybe no one becomes a judge with no political leanings whatsoever. But I also think that a lot of, judges in general, from what I've heard, really try to take politics out of it and try to rule on the basis of the law. Now, you might wonder, if somebody has strong conservative or liberal leanings, can they really put those completely aside? And that's like a psychology question, so I don't really know what to say on that. But I do think judges in general make an effort to try to rule on the basis of a law. But as we've seen with like Supreme Court justices, many of them have bents one way or the other. And they would probably say, well, it's not because I'm not voting one way or the other because I have political leanings, because I vote one way or the other because I have a certain view about how the law, how we should read the Constitution. But certain views of the Constitution line up with certain views with certain political leanings. So for example, like if you're someone who's like an originalist about the Constitution, say you're a judge, and you think we shouldn't read into the Constitution stuff that's not there, we should only like take the Constitution at its face value, what it literally says, then you might be less likely to say, hey, the Constitution says that there should be homosexual marriage, because you're looking at the Constitution and you're saying, well, I don't see any mention of homosexuality and homosexual marriage in the Constitution, so it's not actually in the Constitution. So that's an example where having a certain view about the law, having a certain view about how we should read the Constitution might produce a certain conservative ruling on homosexual marriage, but you could be ruling just on how you think the law works, not on your personal views about homosexual marriage. So I do think politics, I certainly acknowledge that judges can be lean conservative or liberal in their rulings. I think they would say, though, that's because of how they see the law. And as to your question of as whether Trump's criticism of the courts being overly political is accurate, I'm not sure he said overly political, but he did imply, his tweet about this did seem to imply, or his tweets seemed to imply that judges' political leanings might influence this case. I don't know these judges personally. I don't know about their backgrounds. I tend to be someone who is benefit of the doubt kind of person. So unless I have reason to believe otherwise, I will assume a judge is applying the law to the best of their ability and not letting their politics come into it. And that's on either side. So I personally have no information that suggests that any of the judges on the appeals court are going to make a political ruling just for political reasons. But at the same time, I don't have the information the administration has and that President Trump has. So it's hard for me to speak to whether his tweet about the judges being political and having that possibly affect their decision is accurate, because I don't have the information that President Trump has and his administration has. So it's a very good question, from Fred. So thank you for asking the question. Those are my thoughts on it. Maybe some of you out there have other thoughts. I'd be happy to hear them. So good question. Okay, so before I go to another comment, thank you for the comments. I love having you guys write in and give comments. And when I say guys, by the way, I mean both men and women. I just say the word guys, so let that be said. We are here, I just want to restate again, we're here covering breaking news. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has announced that by the end of business today, so by 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern, they will come out with their ruling on Trump's travel ban. And remember, this ruling is on the temporary restraining order. So all they're ruling on today is the temporary restraining order, which was issued on Trump's travel ban, will that be allowed to stand or not? That temporary restraining order was given by a federal district court judge in Seattle a few days ago, end of last week. And it's supposed to be in effect for a couple weeks. And the question at issue now is, will the Trump administration be successful in trying to get that temporary restraining order removed? Because the Trump administration wants the travel ban to start being enforced now, but it currently, as of today, the travel ban is not being enforced in any way, shape, or form. It is not being enforced because this temporary restraining order is out there. And the temporary restraining order says, do not enforce this travel ban. So what will the court rule today? We will see. If you want to write in, love to hear your comments, love to hear your questions. We've already been reading some comments from people. The two ways to do that are go to Twitter @Lookner, which is my Twitter, and direct message me, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. That information is at the bottom of your screen right now if you need it, how to reach me. Let's see, so we have some more comments here. We have a comment from Master Maddie. Master Maddie actually has a question. Master Maddie says, but if they end up in the Supreme Court, President Trump will win anyway, right? So I think what Master Maddie you're asking about is, suppose today the appeals court comes out and the appeals court says, we're fine with this temporary restraining order. We have no problem with it. The temporary restraining order can continue. At that point, it is an option for the Trump administration to appeal this case and go to the Supreme Court. And if the Supreme Court decides to take it, I'm guessing they very well might take it. If the Supreme Court takes it, then they will decide on the temporary restraining order. But the question that, Master Maddie, you asked is, well, if it goes to the Supreme Court, Trump will win anyway, right? I have no idea about this. I've read different things on this. I've read some people said there might be a split at the Supreme Court. I've read a few sources saying that they think the Supreme Court might rule for the Trump administration. But I will say that the vast majority of stuff I've read suggests that people don't really know what will happen to the Supreme Court. So it's entirely possible that if the appeals court comes out with a temporary restraining order today and the Trump administration appeals that, if the appeals court upholds the temporary restraining order today, and the Trump administration appeals that to the Supreme Court could go either way on that. So we'll have to see what happens. And I should also say that if the Trump administration comes out victorious today, so let's say this appeals court comes out with their ruling, and the appeals court says, the district court judge made a mistake. There should be no temporary restraining order. So from this moment forward, the temporary restraining order is not in effect. The states of Washington and Minnesota, who originally filed the lawsuit, they could also appeal this ruling, and they could appeal to the Supreme Court, and then it could go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could issue one of many different ways on that. So today is not the last word on the temporary restraining order, in the sense that it could by either side be appealed, and it could, if the Supreme Court takes the case, go to the Supreme Court. So we'll have to see. So don't read into today's decision too much, because it could go to the Supreme Court. And also, as I keep stressing, because I think it's important to know, and sometimes I think in the coverage it gets passed over, all that's at issue today is whether this temporary restraining order that a federal judge ordered on Trump's travel ban is going to be allowed to stay in effect. This temporary restraining order is only supposed to be in effect for a couple weeks until there's a federal court ruling on whether the travel ban itself is legal or not. But this temporary restraining order would stay in effect until that happens. And what they're ruling on today, the appeals court, is whether this temporary restraining order will be allowed to stay in effect. And that's important to the administration because they want the travel ban to be in effect now. They don't want it to be the case. Even if the travel ban is determined to be legal a couple weeks from now, the Trump administration does not want a couple-week window where people who would be banned from coming in under the travel ban can come into this country. They're worried about that happening, and that is part of what they said in their brief, in their oral arguments, about why they don't think they want this this temporary restraining order to be overturned. So let's see if we have some more comments here from people. We do. Thank you for writing in. Okay, this is all right. Well, so Comrade Yiannopoulos writes in. I like your screen name, Comrade Yiannopoulos. Comrade Yiannopoulos said, I did not know this is true. The three judges are in different cities, not in one court. Clifton is in Honolulu, not sure where the other two are located. So this appeals court, there are three judges from the appeals court who are going to rule today on this, together as a group, on this temporary restraining order. The appeals court itself has more than three judges. Just they pick these three to rule on this temporary restraining order. And what Comrade Yiannopoulos is telling me, and I appreciate the info, Comrade Yiannopoulos is saying, according to Comrade Yiannopoulos, that they are not in the same city, they are located in different cities. And as I said before, the appeals court itself is not in one city. It's headquartered in San Francisco, but there are different, I don't know if it's branches or appeals courts connected to this under this whole, that they're all part of this appeals court in different cities. So Comrade Yiannopoulos says the three judges are in different cities, not in one court. Clifton is in Honolulu, not sure where the other two are located. So I'll take you at your word, Comrade Yiannopoulos. If somebody thinks differently, feel free to write in and correct that, but thank you for writing in and saying that. So I guess if that's the case, then in the oral argument, through the magic of technology, it sounded as if they were in the same room because they were all on Skype or on the phone, or actually it was on the telephone. So interesting point. Okay, let's see if there is more. One thing I forgot to mention is this. So as I said, there are more judges in the Ninth Circuit Court than just the three who are going to be ruling on this temporary restraining order today. And I believe that when the three judges give their ruling, either side has the option that you can appeal to the Supreme Court, but I believe you can also appeal to a larger number of judges. So this three-judge panel is like a mini panel, and I think that the losing side today could say, hey, we want to appeal this, and we want to have like a larger group of judges than just three from the appeals court to vote on this. So I believe that's the case. So there's options for either side today, depending on what the ruling is. And I guess I could see a world, and let's say the ruling splits the difference. Let's say the ruling is, we think part of the temporary restraining order should stand, but not the rest of it. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm wondering if maybe both sides could appeal, because one side could say, we think the whole temporary restraining order should be allowed to stand. And the other side could say, we think none of the temporary restraining order should be allowed to stand. So I could see a world in which both sides have a problem with the ruling today, in which case maybe they both appeal, but I'm not sure about all the technicalities here. If there's a lawyer here who wants to write in and say something about that, I'd be happy to read your message. So we have here, let's see, a couple more comments. Thank you for writing in. If you'd like to comment or ask questions or make a prediction, I'd love to hear some predictions. What do people think is going to happen? 2 ways to do that. Go to @Lookner on Twitter, @LOOKNER, direct message me, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. And also, just so I like to keep saying this, we're covering breaking news before 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time today. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has said they will release their ruling on the temporary restraining order on President Trump's travel ban. So we will, as soon as we get that, bring that to you. So we have a few more comments here I want to see. Let's see. Just Some Sad Peppy sent me a link and said, click on it and go to page 10 and read from there. I'm clicking on your link because I'm trusting. Let's see. This is so what Peppy, the name is, Just Some Sad Peppy sent me, was actually just a friend of the court brief in support of the Trump administration. But this is not from the court itself. So I think Peppy was saying this suggests the court will rule one way or the other. This suggests the court will rule from the Trump administration. But Pepe, I think I say this wrong, it's like Pepe, or Pepe. Just Some Sad Pepe, just so you know, this brief was like a letter to the court in support of the Trump administration from somebody who thought the Trump administration had the better case. But this does not itself tell us how they will rule. So, but thank you for sending that in. Let's see here. We have Norway. Hello, Norway. How are you? Norway says, first of all, Norway gives me a compliment on my news anchoring. Thank you, Norway. I appreciate it. Second, Norway says, Lawfare in America has been very effectively used by terrorist organization CARE, Council on Islamic American Relations, and radical leftist organizations like Southern Policy Law Center. There have been some suggestions from pundits and lawyers that the liberals will be using Lawfare as a strategy to bog down the administration in legal red tape. What is your take on this prospect? So, I'm not familiar with the term lawfare, but I believe it's something like warfare through law. That's what it means in Norway. And the idea is to keep President Trump from being able to put his policies into effect by constantly suing the administration and claiming the policies are illegal and filing a lot of lawsuits about this. So, and your question is, do you think this will be used as a strategy by the left to bog down the administration in legal red tape? Well, I am not an expert on this field, but I certainly think there are many people who oppose the administration. So if they think that this can slow the implementation of policy, I'm sure they will use it. And I'm guessing that on the other side as well, if there were a president who wanted to do, let's say Bernie Sanders or Hillary had won the presidency and they want to put things into place that people on the right didn't want, that is an option for people on the right that they could use, which would be to file lawsuits. Now, someone might say, well, if you're really filing the lawsuits just to slow up the administration, and not because you think they have a great chance of winning, or you're not really doing it because, you're doing it as like a way to slow policy and not as a way to really redress genuine harms that have been caused. Isn't that kind of dishonest or something? Well, look, that's perhaps, but it's like if our system allows it, people are going to use it. If we always have the option of changing our system, but if it's allowed, I think it will be used by either side to oppose a presidency, and maybe it's going to be used frequently, more frequently than before. I am not an expert on how frequently it's been used in the past. So, but perhaps it is something that will be used a lot, and perhaps it's something the administration needs to be ready for. So I think you raise a valid concern, Norway, and you might think this is a sign of that. Do you think the various lawsuits against this. So Norway, it seems like you're saying like the various lawsuits against Trump's travel ban might be like being organized centrally by some organization that just is going to do this kind of thing for all of Trump's policies or for a lot of his policies. Perhaps so. We'll have to see how it works out if we can find out. But thank you for the comment, Norway. And I want to get to a couple more comments people have said. And hold on here. I just want to open up. I don't like to ignore. And I forgot to check Twitter. I should do that too. So let me check Twitter real fast. And also open up my email because I haven't checked that yet. So while we're doing this broadcast, I do like to periodically check my Twitter feed just to make sure there hasn't been some updates that you haven't gotten yet. I'm seeing that a blackout hit the Belgian capital of Brussels. So if there's anybody in Brussels right now, you can write in on that. But that's not really, doesn't really have to do with our topic right now. I'm looking. I am not seeing right now anything about updating. So it looks like there's no recent news or any kind of leaks or anything about what will happen in the ruling. All we know so far is this appeals court ruling is going to be given before 5 p.m. Pacific time, before 8 p.m. Eastern time today. And this appeals court is going to give a ruling on Trump, the temporary restraining order on Trump's travel ban. So this temporary restraining order is in effect for like a couple weeks. And we will hear today whether the appeals court agrees this temporary restraining order can stay in effect or whether they're going to overturn some or all of it. It is not today a ruling on the legality of the travel ban itself, but it's an important ruling nonetheless. So if you want to write in, we've been reading some comments here, sharing them with you. We've gotten some excellent comments and questions, as we always do, actually, and I'm not lying, we really do. I'm very impressed with your comments and questions. Either if you want to do that, the two ways to do that are, one, go to Twitter, find me at Lookner, at Lookner. Feel free to follow me if you'd like. But you could, if you want to contact me during the show, direct message me on Twitter or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Both those addresses are on your screen right now at the bottom. Oh, and we got some emails too. So let me take a couple of emails here and see what people had to say. And if you want, you can either comment, you can make a prediction, you can vent, you can ask a question, all of these things. Okay, so yes, Thomas Schroeder, thank you. I'm going to read your comment today for a change. Thomas said, hey, Steve, just so you know, the Ninth Circuit Court is located in San Francisco. So yes, the headquarters are in San Francisco. Thank you, Thomas. I checked that out a little earlier. You might have said this before. I went online and checked it out. But we also had a viewer wrote in and said that he thought that the 3 circuit court judges who were ruling on this today were all in different cities, and he wasn't sure exactly where they all were. So that's possible too. But the circuit court headquarters is in San Francisco. The federal court ruling that initially put the travel ban temporary restraining order into effect was Seattle. That's where that is. But circuit courts, there's fewer circuit courts, which are the appeals courts, than district courts. So the district court in Seattle, that district is in the larger circuit, the Ninth Circuit. So the Ninth Circuit covers Seattle, but lots of other cities as well. San Francisco would be another one. So the Ninth Circuit is a Pacific Coast located circuit court. But thank you, Thomas, for that message. We have here, let's see. Hold on a second. I'm checking my emails, and I think I look at them and think they're all about today, but that one was not about today. And then this one is from someone from the chat who does not want their real name used. I got you. And please, if you don't want your real name used, say it at the beginning of the message like this person did, because if you say it at the end, sometimes I by accident read your real name, and then I get to the end and it's like, oh, and by the way, don't read my real name, and it's like, I wish I knew. So thank you for saying that. Person who will name to be left unsaid from the chat room. Name to be left unsaid from the chat room says, there is just so much information in everything, I can't get it straight through my mind. Question. 1. Does there have to be significant evidence that the lawyers had to prove to the appeals court that America I got to read this better. Question is, from this person, does there have to be significant evidence that the lawyers had to prove to the appeals court that America is in danger at this point in order for the appeals court to make their decision to keep the ban or lift it? So that's the first question. And then the second question is, if they go by the law that, she has a comment, or he has a comment that says, if they go by the law, then the ban will be back on. That's what this person says. And also, thank you, Steve. So you're welcome. So the question was, did someone have to show in court that there was a danger at this point for the travel ban to be kept or lifted? So the first correction, and I agree, I am sympathetic with you. There's so much information on this, it's hard to keep it straight in your head. So the first thing I want to just point out is that the ruling today is not to whether to keep the ban in effect or not permanently. The ruling today is just on whether this temporary restraining order, which temporarily for a couple weeks doesn't allow the ban to be enforced, it's whether that restraining order will be allowed to stand. But your question can apply to that temporary restraining order too. And the question is, did either side have to show that there's some kind of danger? So to get the temporary restraining order overturned legally, I believe that the Trump administration and the Justice Department is the ones who argue on their behalf. The Trump administration, by way of the Justice Department, had to show that some harm would come from not overturning the travel ban, the temporary restraining order. This is my understanding, that if they want this for the Trump administration to win and to successfully argue in a way that's convincing to the court that this temporary restraining order should be done away with, they need to show that some harm will come to the country from this temporary restraining order. And in the oral arguments, they tried to do this. This was actually a significant point of contention in the oral arguments, where the judges said, hey, Justice Department, so what's the big deal about this temporary restraining order? What's the harm that's going to come from this? And the lawyer who was arguing for the administration, the Justice Department lawyer, said something like, it was kind of general, and they said, like, look, we really need to re-examine our vetting program, and to do that, we have to stop this immigration and refugees coming into the country for a few months to give us time until to re-examine and put a new, better vetting process into place. And if we don't do that, and we don't start enforcing this travel ban, then what will happen is there's a risk that while we're letting people in these next few weeks or few months, because the vetting process isn't where it needs to be, some bad people will get in. So the basic argument that they were saying, the harm that would come from the temporary restraining order is, if the temporary restraining order, by preventing the travel ban from being enforced, might result in bad people getting into this country who would not come in once the revised vetting procedure would be put into place. So that's the harm that the administration says could come from, basically that's the harm they said that they say could come from this temporary restraining order. But the judges, that didn't seem, at least in questioning, to satisfy the judges, because the judges seem to want the administration to say, like, oh, we have some information about a specific threat of people coming in from these countries during the next couple weeks. The judges seem to want specific information why these people from these countries in the next specific few weeks or month, there was a threat that we'd get bad people from those countries. That's what they wanted. And they kept asking the Justice Department lawyer for this, and the Justice Department lawyer didn't have or did not want to offer those specifics. So that was a big point of contention during the questioning. So that was a bit of a long answer to your question, but believe me, it was a shorter version of a more complete answer, which we would need a legal expert to really give. But basically, yeah, person from chat, the justice to successfully get the temporary restraining order overturned, the Trump administration needs to show that there's some harm that comes from the temporary restraining order. And just so you know as well, to even bring the lawsuit, which the states of Washington and Minnesota did, which ended up resulting in the temporary restraining order, to even bring that lawsuit, they had to show that they were being harmed by the travel ban, because you can only file a lawsuit in this country if you are harmed by the person that's being sued. If you're just like some neutral party that has nothing to do with the case, you can't file a lawsuit against somebody. You have to be personally involved in the issues at hand. And that's called having standing. You have standing when you have the legal right to file a lawsuit. So to show they had standing, the states of Minnesota and Washington did need to argue in court that they were being harmed by this travel ban. And they argued things like, hey, we have students at our schools, our colleges, which were visiting overseas and now they can't get back in. Or we have residents of our states and their family members were supposed to come here and now they can't come, so the families can't be complete. So they basically argued that in a bunch of different ways, their residents and their institutions like their colleges were being harmed by the travel ban, and they needed to argue that just to be able to bring the lawsuit. Okay, lots of legalese, but just trying to answer your questions here. Let me take a breath. Let me get a drink of water and take a breath here. So it is 6:11 p.m. Eastern, and we're doing this live coverage right now because this breaking news came out that the Ninth Circuit Court today, within 2 hours from now, so by 8 p.m. Eastern or by 5 p.m. Pacific, they're going to come out with their ruling about Trump's travel ban, about the temporary restraining order which was put into effect. So right now that travel ban is not being enforced anywhere because of this temporary restraining order which was issued last week by a federal judge. And the appeals court today is going to release their decision on whether this temporary restraining order is allowed to stand or not. Will it be allowed to stand? Will it be eliminated? Will part of it be allowed to stand? So it's possible. It's possible that this ruling could come out, and within an hour or two when this ruling comes out, the travel ban could start being enforced again right away. The airlines right now, as of right now, are letting people come on who were allowed to come on before the travel ban. That could change within a couple hours, because as soon as that ruling comes out, if that ruling says, hey, no temporary restraining order, then you will see some changes very quickly where airlines no longer let those people get on, and Customs and Border Patrol says certain people can't come in anymore. So we could see that happen, or the appeals court could allow the temporary restraining order to stand. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to give a shout to my producer, Micah. Micah, is it possible for you or someone else to come in for a minute? And one of the reasons I'm asking is because this chair, we did a little chair replacement today, and this chair is because I would like to replace this chair with one of the previous chairs. Because I have a finicky back. That's why this is. But also, I would like to personally take a 2-minute break, but maybe someone like Micah can come in and fill in for me while I take this break, and switch the chair off. So hold on, Jake. Oh, you're going to bring that in? You're going to see a chair come in a second into view. Hold on as we do this. We're not going away yet. Just put it down there. And so please stay with us while I get up, we replace the chair, and I come back. And after we replace the chair, if I'm not back yet, I think Micah's going to sit in for a second and talk to you for a second. Our producer, Micah, who's back here. All right, this will be...
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Micah. I'm sitting in here just temporarily. You don't have to stare at my ugly face much longer. Steve is currently taking a break. He'll be right back. Again, just repeating exactly why we're doing this, why we're here. So at any moment, up until approximately 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, the Ninth Circuit Court will make public their decision on the temporary travel ban that President Trump signed an executive order with. The executive order President Trump signed, they're making that decision on whether or not it will continue or it will cease soon. That can happen any second here, which is why we started coverage early. From the announcement that they would have it done by the end of the business day, we went ahead and started coverage so that we would make sure that we are on air, ready to go, when they make their final decision on whether or not it will continue or it will stop. More than likely, according to historical data, the Ninth Circuit Court has been historically liberal, so it's more than likely that the temporary ban will continue, and possible that it could continue up throughout throughout the court system, all the way maybe even to the Supreme Court, and again they would discuss it up there and then make their final decision, and the Supreme Court would have the final say. That is not necessarily the case. I mean, it may end up being where the court comes out and says, you know what, it's not unconstitutional, and the ban can continue, and that would happen throughout the period of time specified by the executive order, and it would be as if this entire ordeal in the last almost 2 weeks didn't even exist. Obviously, it still does, and the ban issue and all this kind of stuff did occur, but in regards to legality, it would basically change the course that has been going the last week. So that's what we're here for. That's what we're covering. Again, I'm only here temporarily. Steve is coming back in. But while I'm here, I want to go ahead and give you my point of view on this entire travel ban. I'm from a military family. I'm in the military. So militarily speaking, the travel ban is very much a good idea in regards to stopping Islamic terrorism from coming into the United States and hurting us here in the United States. And the reason I say that is because right now we cannot really guarantee that any particular person would be being able to be vetted appropriately so that they aren't a terrorist, basically. So hold on a second. All right. Sorry, I was getting a message. So militarily speaking, strategically speaking, when you are bringing in the enemy into your own country, it's not a good idea. So what President Trump did was sign an executive order, which falls under, I can't remember the exact act, but there was an act passed several decades ago that allowed the president to basically limit immigration in order for national security purposes. And that's what Trump has done. He signed an executive order to limit immigration from these 7 countries to prevent them from coming in here, Islamic terrorists from coming in here. And these aren't even, people are saying this is a Muslim ban. These aren't even, the top 5 Muslim countries in the world. So that's my opinion. I think it's a good idea. I think it's great. So Steve's back, so we're going to get back to him, and you don't have to look at me anymore. I'm a producer here, so there you go, Steve.
Welcome back to our live coverage. This breaking news just in right now. The appeals court has ruled that the temporary restraining order on Trump's travel ban will stay in place. So the appeals court has refused to reinstate President Trump's travel ban. And right now what I'm going to do is, I literally just got this news 5 seconds ago. So I'm going to just look here for a second at and see if I can get more information from Twitter. So again, this is breaking news. It's just coming in. It was just announced. President Trump came out with his travel ban about a week and a half ago. Last Friday, a federal court judge put a temporary restraining order on the travel ban for a couple of weeks. That's what we're talking about here, a temporary restraining order. Since that judge's order came out, the travel ban could not be enforced. The Trump administration was trying to get the appeals court to get rid of the temporary restraining order. They were trying to have the travel ban reinstated. But the appeals court just ruled against the Trump administration. They are not going to reinstate the travel ban. I know nothing yet about what the reasoning for the ruling was or anything. I'm just getting this news right now. One thing that could happen now is the Trump administration, via the Justice Department, could appeal this to the Supreme Court. This issue about the temporary restraining order could go to the Supreme Court. But I do want to emphasize, what has not been said today is that the travel ban is unconstitutional. What has been said today is just that the temporary restraining order, which was supposed to be in effect for a couple weeks until the court actually ruled whether the travel ban was legal, that temporary restraining order can be allowed to stay in effect. So basically the circuit court said, the Court of Appeals, which is called the circuit court, they said, we're not going to rule that the district court judge made a mistake when the district court judge put that temporary restraining order into effect. So it is a defeat for the Trump administration, but they can appeal to the Supreme Court. And they also it's still not, this ruling today does not say that the travel ban itself is unconstitutional. However, depending on what the circuit court says, one might think that this actually is a sign that there's a decent chance that the district court will ultimately find the travel ban unconstitutional, but we'll have to see about that. I am really quickly, I would love to first of all, I definitely would love to hear your comments on this, your questions on this. If you want to write in, the two ways to do that are at the bottom of your screen. At Lookner, at Lookner on Twitter. If you go there and you direct message me there on Twitter, I'll get it. And you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. And if you email me a comment, I will share it with people out there as long as it's clean. Or feel free to ask a question. I'll do the best I can to answer it. So let's, I'm just going to look over some tweets now. One thing I like to do when there's breaking news is just see the tweets and what people are saying. So this is a tweet from Fox News producer Chris Snyder says, at Chris Snyder Fox says, this is a major setback for the White House. That's what Chris Snyder says. Let's see. I'm just getting this news and I'm trying to give you any kind of interesting little tidbits that I'm getting here. Jake Tapper, this is what Jake Tapper tweets. This is what he thinks is going to happen. Ninth Circuit has ruled against reinstating the travel ban onto the 8-member Supreme Court. So Jake Tapper thinks this is going to the Supreme Court. And something else Jake Tapper says is, he points out, is that a tie in the Supreme Court would uphold the Ninth Circuit. So right now, as of right now, this temporary restraining order is still in effect. The travel ban is not being enforced right now because there's a temporary restraining order on it. If it goes to the Supreme Court, if the administration appeals it and the Supreme Court takes it, if it goes to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court ends up deadlocked at 4-4, then the lower court precedent holds. So right now, the lower court precedent is that temporary restraining order is good to go. So to win in the Supreme Court, a tie is not good enough this time for the administration. I will also say this, an interesting question presents itself. How fast can they get Gorsuch confirmed? Neil Gorsuch is the nominee for Supreme Court. Will this affect how fast the Senate moves forward on his confirmation? Because if you assume that Gorsuch will rule with President Trump on the temporary restraining order, then it would be in the Trump administration's interest to have Gorsuch confirmed for the Supreme Court if they're going to appeal this ruling to the Supreme Court, because that'd be an extra vote for them. That could be the deciding vote. Now, I don't know how fast can they get him confirmed. I believe if they use the nuclear option, long story short, there's a procedural that they could use called the nuclear option, which would allow the Republicans in Congress to confirm Gorsuch no matter what the Democrats do. So now, but there is some hesitancy at wanting to use this nuclear option thing because then it allows the Democrats to do the same kind of thing in the future. So will they want to maybe think about using this? And generally, how fast might this speed up the confirmation process for Gorsuch? I don't know, but it's something to look at in the near future. So that's a question that we can look at. Let's see. I haven't heard anything yet about the specific order. I'm trying to see if there's, let's see. Okay, this is coming up from Matt Visser, I believe you pronounce it, Viser. I follow him on Twitter. He is a reporter for the Boston Globe. And Matt Visser writes, the White House has called for a lid for tonight, meaning no public appearances expected. There is no lid on President Trump's Twitter account. So Matt Visser makes the point, which I think is a good point, is according to Matt Visser of the Boston Globe, no public appearances from the White House, that would include Kellyanne, Sean Spicer, Steve Bannon, Mike Pence, President Trump, no public appearances are expected about this court ruling, but it will be incredibly interesting to me. What does Trump tweet? Now, there's this other question of, does President Trump tweet anything tonight? To me, I would be utterly shocked if President Trump didn't tweet about this. Personally, I'd be surprised if he doesn't tweet about it soon. And this will be very, very interesting because there have been, if you've been following President Trump's Twitter account, and if you don't, I would highly recommend following it. There has been, in both his Twitter posts and his public comments, President Trump has said that strongly that he disagreed with the original federal court judge's ruling that there should be a temporary travel ban. He disagrees with he disagrees with the federal judge's ruling that putting a temporary restraining order on the travel ban. President Trump obviously did not agree that a temporary restraining order should be put on his travel ban, but he was very strong about this. He thought this was a very bad ruling. He called the judge a so-called judge. He said that politics were coming into play here. So he was very upset and portraying this ruling negatively. Now that the appeals court has ruled against him, will he step it up a notch even further, his criticism of this ruling? And now we have two rulings for him to criticize, the original temporary restraining order ruling and the appeals court ruling. And remember also, so the appeals court who ruled today were the ones having that oral arguments a couple days ago. And President Trump was highly critical of those oral arguments, of the justices in those oral arguments. I did see a public comment he made where he said something like, they were raising points where it should have been obvious what the points were, and he used more specific language. You can go back to his tweets or check on YouTube, but he was not, he was critical of some of the conduct of the appeals court judges during the questioning phase. He thought that they were not, I don't know if you want to say being fair, but he certainly didn't think that they were acting as favorable towards his side of the case as they should have been. Now that they have ruled against him, the appeals court, on this issue of the temporary restraining order, what does he say? And this is a very significant moment in his presidency. So we have here, it's not just the first time the courts have ruled against something he's done. We now have multiple rulings against him. Now this is just a temporary restraining order. That's all this is. The courts have not yet ruled that the travel ban is not legal. However, perhaps one might think that this is a sign that they might rule that way if you take this ruling on the temporary restraining order as a sign of that. But this is, I don't know if adversity is the right word, but this is something that President Trump has tried to do and has now gotten blocked. It's gotten blocked a couple of times. And to me, this is also significant because he really put himself out there the last few days since the original federal judge's ruling and said, like, I don't agree with this and I don't agree with what's going on and there's politics involved. And now that this next ruling has come out, which upholds the temporary restraining order, will he come out, will he be even more upset? Will he not be? What will he say? So it'll be really interesting to see how he responds here in coming up here. So a lot going on right now, and I want to get to your comments. So I want to check my Twitter, but I want to get your comments too. So let me first see if any of you have any comments. I'm trying to get to as many as possible. I Stand With Trump asked, how can a regular court judge supersede the president's executive order? I don't see it possible. Do you? And I Stand With Trump also said, also with all the TV video footage of several Congress members stating that there is no possible secure, safe way to perform any proper refugee vetting at all, including issuing visas of all kinds, how can the judges overlook all of that in the evidence given the testimonies? So the basic question here is like, how can a federal court judge overturn an executive order, and how can they do this given that, according to I Stand With Trump, there's been all of these arguments saying that, hey, we need this travel ban to make America safe. So two very good questions. Let me first say that the reason that the court judge can put a temporary restraining order on the president's executive order, the basic answer is that's the way our system works. Our system has checks and balances between all the branches of government. There are three branches of government: the judicial, which is the court system, the legislative, which involves Congress, they make the laws, and there's the executive branch, which is headed by the president, and they carry out the laws, they enforce the laws, they execute the laws. And there are checks and balances in all the branches of government because the framers did not want any branch to be too powerful. So, for example, the president can appoint people to the Supreme Court. That's a check that the president has on the judicial branch. But in that power, the president's power is checked by the Congress, the legislative branch, because the Congress gets to approve or deny the president's appointments to the Supreme Court. So even just in that, we see the framers framed it so that different branches could put checks on the other branches to keep one branch from getting any too powerful. And the judge having this power, the federal courts having this power to put a temporary restraining order on the president's executive order, and the court also has a power to declare that executive order illegal. That's a check. It's a check that's from the checks and balances. That's a check on the executive that was given to the judicial by the Constitution. Now, of course, that in theory could be changed by a constitutional amendment. Constitutional amendments are incredibly hard to pass. I don't think that one would pass right now. All the states have to pass them and everything. But basic answer to you is that's the way the system is. And to your other question is to like, well, why would the judge do this? Or how could the judge do this given all of these arguments that this travel ban is needed to keep the country safe? Well, just so you know, what was at issue mainly in the arguments against the travel ban and the need for the temporary restraining order was not whether it keeps America safe so much as the states of Minnesota and Washington who filed this lawsuit, which resulted in the temporary restraining order, basically said that the travel ban is unconstitutional in several ways. They said it violates the due process clause, it violates the establishment clause, it violates the equality under the law clause. So they said it violates the Constitution in several ways. And so their argument didn't rely on, their argument that the executive order is illegal, or at least is likely illegal, and therefore we need a temporary restraining order on it. Their argument didn't rely on the issue of whether the travel ban made us more safe. It really relied on whether the travel ban itself violated certain parts of the Constitution. So, but we could at length talk about those, but we won't at the moment. I'm happy to answer questions about that if you want to email them to me or whatever. But those are the basic issues at hand going on here. So excellent question. I stand with Trump. I should repeat, we're covering breaking news. I would want to say about 15 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued their ruling on the temporary restraining order on Trump's travel ban. They refused to overturn the temporary restraining order. So basically, they refused to have Trump's travel ban reinstated, at least for today. That's the ruling from that court. So as of now, just as it was yesterday, Trump's travel ban is not being enforced anywhere because there's a temporary restraining order on it. That temporary restraining order was put on the travel ban by a federal court judge at the end of last week. And the temporary restraining order lasts for a couple of weeks, roughly speaking, until a federal court rules on whether Trump's travel ban is constitutional or not, whether it's legal or not. That was not the ruling today. The ruling today was just about the temporary restraining order, whether that would be allowed to stand. And I should also say that, and remind you that President Trump has the opportunity, the Trump administration has the opportunity to appeal this to the Supreme Court if they want. So we very well might see today's ruling be appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sometime in the near future, I would think, would be ruling on this temporary restraining order. I would guess the near future, because if it would take them 5 months to rule on it, there'd be no reason to appeal it, because the temporary restraining order is only supposed to last for a couple weeks. So we'll see what happens. Does the Trump administration appeal this to the Supreme Court? We heard before a report that said no public pronouncements from the White House. Nobody will appear in public. Maybe there's a statement they put out. I would guess they might put out a statement, but no person will appear talking about this tonight from the White House. But the White House could give a statement. The White House could, President Trump could tweet about it. Somebody else in the White House could tweet about it. We'll have to see what they say. This news is just breaking now. I would love to hear your comments or your feedback or your questions about this. If you want to leave a comment, go to, or send a comment to me that I could read on the air. Go to my Twitter, @Lookner, @LOOKNER. Feel free to follow me while you're there if you want, but you don't have to. Go to my Twitter, @Lookner, and direct message me or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Those addresses are up on the screen right now. I'll try to get to all your comments if I can and your reactions. But I'm doing two things at once. I'm trying to do that, but I'm also trying to just give you the most up-to-date news possible. So before I go to your comments, which I will go to in a second, I am just checking my Twitter feed again because I don't want to miss anything really important that comes out. Let's say. We have a tweet from Tom Cotton. Tom Cotton says, this is coming from Stephen Dennis's. I follow Stephen Dennis. This is at Stephen T. Dennis. This is according to Stephen Dennis. Tom Cotton had tweeted out, this misguided ruling is from the Ninth Circuit, the most notoriously left-wing court in America. I want to check that. So hold on a second. I'm going to check that tweet. So Senator Tom. All right. So I'm sorry. I misreported this. That is from Senator Tom Cotton. We have a statement from Senator Tom Cotton that came out. And I'm reading that now. I'm on Senator Tom Cotton's Twitter feed. So this statement just came out tonight from Senator Tom Cotton. It's Senator Tom Cotton's statement on the Ninth Circuit Court ruling. This is what Tom Cotton had to say tonight. I'm quoting from, this is President Tom Cotton's website. President Trump's order to temporarily pause the refugee program and travel from several I've misstated that. President Trump's order to temporarily pause the refugee program and travel from 7 war-torn countries is plainly legal under the Constitution and our immigration laws. No foreigner has a constitutional right to enter the United States, and courts ought not to second-guess sensitive national security decisions of the president. This misguided ruling is from the Ninth Circuit, the most notoriously left-wing court in America, and the most reversed court at the Supreme Court. I'm confident the administration's position will ultimately prevail. So that's a strong statement from Senator Tom Cotton against the appeals court ruling tonight. Again, we are covering breaking news. The appeals court tonight came out with a ruling, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, that upheld the temporary restraining order on President Trump's travel ban. So they were refusing to reinstate President Trump's travel ban. We just heard what Tom Cotton had to say about it. So that just came out. And I'm just looking down here to just make sure there's nothing. Let's see. Is this for real? Hold on a second. Wow. This is Trump just tweeted a few minutes ago. Thank you. And Micah just said this in my ear, just as I saw it, so thank you, Micah. Wow. President Trump, this is amazing. His tweet, all in caps, all in capital letters, "See you in court, comma, the security of our nation is at stake." Again, President Trump tweeted just a few minutes ago, all in capital letters. Fascinating. "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake!" Exclamation point. Now, "see you in court." First of all, there is something funny to me about saying "see you in court" to, it feels like he's saying this to the appeals court judges who are already in court, because that's where they work. But "see you in court" implies to me that this will be appealed to the Supreme Court. That President Trump is planning to appeal this to the Supreme Court. That's what it implies to me. It doesn't explicitly say it in here, but it implies it to me. So that is a fascinating tweet. I'm going to read this one more time just because it's fascinating. Look, I'll say it. I find it entertaining too. Whether you agree with him or disagree with him, that's a very entertaining tweet. Is it weird for me to say that? I don't care. I will say this. I find it refreshing that we get an unvarnished President Trump when he tweets out. Now, people might agree or disagree with his tweets, but I do feel it's coming from him. And I feel with most politicians, the vast majority of them, the tweets are put out by their staff members. I feel like all of Hillary's tweets just felt like she never came close to the BlackBerry or whatever, and they were just totally written by somebody else. I don't even know if she was tweeting. She knew she was tweeting. Her staff was tweeting half the time. But who knows? But I do find it refreshing because I am certain that past presidents have had very strong reactions, for example, to court decisions. But when they come out with statements, they're very measured and you don't really know what they're thinking. And at least with President Trump, we hear what he's thinking. And what he said in his tweet of a few minutes ago was, "See you in court," all in capital letters. "The security of our nation is at stake!" Exclamation point. So that is breaking news coming from President Trump. Okay, so and Ronnie actually just sent us a message saying he tweeted in all caps, I might add. And Liz also, Liz Willis, our own Liz Willis, sent me a message. So thank you for everybody. So all right, I haven't been ignoring your comments and questions. I've been going back and forth and trying to get to them, but we've had so much news coming out. Let me really quick get to some of your comments. If you want to comment to me or send in a question, I'm happy to read your comments on the air or try to answer your questions. Follow the instructions below. They're down me. Direct message me at @Lookner on Twitter or email me at that address down there. Okay, let me get to some of your comments. Okay, from SNG4, who thankfully changed his screen name to make it shorter, but Twitter handle, but it should be even shorter. It's still 4 letters and 4 syllables. SNG4 writes, "Do you believe there is a chance one of the liberal judges like Kagan, who's more moderate-leaning, could be convinced to favor with the rest of the conservative justices?" So one thing I'll say is this. While the justices tend to lean more conservative or liberal in the results of their rulings, if you take them at their word, they're not ruling on stuff because they're liberal or conservative. They're ruling on the basis of the law. And the liberal judges have different legal philosophies from conservative judges, and that results in them ruling more liberally or more conservatively. So, for example, if liberal judges rule, they might be more likely to rule that the Constitution supports gay marriage. They're not ruling that way because they support gay marriage. They're ruling that way because they have a certain theory of the law under which the Constitution does support gay marriage. So the reason I say that, SNG4, in response to your question is, I'm aware that certain judges are liberal and certain judges are conservative. Certain judges lean liberal in their rulings and certain judges lean conservative in their rulings. But I am not an expert on their legal views. I'm not a Supreme Court expert. And I think to answer the question about what's likely to happen in Supreme Court, you would need to know how the justices' legal philosophies generally are, how they generally think about the law and the Constitution, and what the specific issues are going to be talking about in this ruling are, and what that suggests about how they rule. So it's possible that, Elena Kagan, as I've heard, is more moderate among the liberal judges on a lot of rulings, but I don't know specifically how her legal philosophy is different from the other liberal judges, and so I can't really speak to whether she might be more likely to side with the Trump administration on this or not. It's a very interesting question. I don't know. So perhaps you can find a legal expert somewhere, like online or something, or you feel free to peek at one of the mainstream media networks. But I hope you also keep us right here too, and keep this window open and talk to us and listen to us about about our coverage of this. Maybe you could find somebody. We don't lie to you here. We're honest with you, and I don't have the constitutional law Supreme Court expertise to answer that specific question, but a good question nonetheless. Other questions people have in comments. We have a question from Ellis, E-L-L-I-S, and Ellis says, why wasn't there any of this commotion when Obama banned Iraqis from coming to the U.S. for 6 months? No one complained then. And so Ellis is commenting how under President Obama, I believe in 2011 for 6 months, there was a restriction on Iraqi immigration. Now, I should know this, and I read this and I forgot, but I don't know what the exact 2011 policy involved. Was it a ban on all? Was it on just refugees? Was it on immigrants in general? Was it a ban on them, or was it more stricter vetting? I don't have that information with me right now. I could sit here and search and get it for you, but I think that would probably be very boring for you to watch me for several minutes. So when this kind of thing happens, I just say, I don't have the information, and I will encourage you to look up the specific information if you want. But the question is still a valid one, which is, hey, the State Department under Barack Obama did put some restriction for a period of time on Iraqis coming to this country. Why doesn't that get talked about and in this way? Now, I am guessing that people on the left might say, well, what happened in 2011 was importantly different from the travel ban for reasons X, Y, and Z, and that's where and for that reason, it's not worth complaining about now. It wasn't worth complaining about then, but the travel ban is worse than what President Obama did, what the State Department did, and therefore it's worth complaining about now. Now, to answer this question fully, whether you think that would be a legitimate response, we would need to get specific on what happened in 2011. If I was the best reporter ever, I would have it remembered in my brain, but we cover a lot of stuff, and I forget things that I read, so I don't remember right now exactly what the 2011 policy was. So whether you think that the 2011 policy, there should have been a big uproar then, like there's been an uproar about President Trump's travel ban, will depend on, first of all, what actually happened in 2011, what that policy was, and whether you think that policy was similar enough to the travel ban or different in important ways. So I'm guessing people who don't think it was worth complaining about in 2011, the 2011 policy on Iraqis wasn't worth complaining about, think that because they think it's significantly different in important ways from President Trump's travel ban. So a good question, Ellis. Let me get to some other questions. Thank you for writing in. Carrie Nelson says, what was the ruling count? There are three so-called judges who heard the case. So the so-called judges is reference to President Trump's tweet calling them so-called judges. Great question, Carrie Nelson. I don't have that information yet. I don't have the information on whether this was a unanimous ruling tonight or whether it was a 2-1 ruling. And I should keep repeating this. We are covering breaking news tonight. In the last hour, the appeals court in the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals came out with their ruling on the temporary restraining order on Trump's travel ban, and they said the temporary restraining order is allowed to stand. So tonight, the appeals court refused to reinstate Trump's travel ban. So as a result, there still is this temporary restraining order in effect, which came into effect last week when it was ordered by a federal judge in Seattle. And that temporary restraining order says for a couple of weeks, roughly speaking, no travel ban enforcement. It can't be enforced. So it's not being enforced right now. What has not been ruled on today is whether President Trump's travel ban is legal or not. That is a ruling to come in the future. That case has not been decided yet. It's not been argued yet in court, and it will be soon. The temporary restraining order is just in effect until that case gets decided at the federal court level. Also, you should know that if you missed it before, we talked about this before, President Trump the Trump administration can appeal this ruling to the Supreme Court. And from an earlier tweet, which happened not so long ago, it looks like President Trump is planning on doing that. So in case you missed it, President Trump tweeted out, it is now 14 minutes ago, President Trump tweeted out a response to this ruling very soon after the ruling, a fascinating tweet. The tweet is in all capital letters. If you want to see this, go to @RealDonaldTrump if you didn't know where that was. And the tweet says, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake!" Exclamation point. So "see you in court" seems to imply President Trump is planning on appealing this to the Supreme Court. And I have to say, again, I find it amusing, and it's funny to me that President Trump tweeted out "see you in court" to judges who were already in court. And I'm not saying this to make fun of President Trump. I think, if anything, President Trump, I feel, has a good sense of humor. Now, you might not think what he says is funny, but I do think he does joke around a lot. And I think in this case, he might have thought it was amusing to say "see you in court" to judges. Maybe he wasn't thinking about that. Maybe he was just saying "see you in court" because that's what he was saying that because he was saying, "I'm going to appeal this and I want to let you know that." But it's hey, to me, at least we have a politician here who's tweeting out their real feelings and not talking in politicianese. And I think actually a lot of people responded to that in President Trump's campaign. They responded to somebody who was letting you know how he really thought. And you might agree with it or disagree with it, but you didn't feel like with President Trump, you were getting, and candidate Trump, that you were getting spin, that you were getting stuff he had run polls about, and he was just saying what he thought, the polls showed you wanted to hear. In political language, he was giving you the real language, and I think a tweet like this is a perfect example of that, of he says what he thinks. That's what he thinks. So fascinating to me. If you want to comment, while we're covering this breaking news, if you want to comment, would love. I've been reading your comments. I want to read more. Share it with the rest of the viewership. Write me. You can do that two ways. Go to @Lookner. I'm on Twitter, @LOOKNER. Follow me if you'd like, but you don't have to. But I'd love to have more followers so I can tweet you more stuff and then you can respond to it to me. Go to @Lookner if you want to email me or if you want to contact me and have me put your comment or question on this show that we're doing right now. Go to @Lookner and direct message me on Twitter. Direct message me. Or you can email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. We are going to get back to your comments in a moment, but first, seeing as all this stuff is happening so fast, I want to just go back to Twitter and look and see if there's anything new from Twitter. Last time I did that, I found a tweet from our president. So I do like to check and see if any news is coming out. Maybe some more came out about the case. We have... Okay, this is Joe Scarborough's view. And Joe Scarborough, I think I listen to Morning Joe a lot. I think it's an interesting view because on Joe Scarborough, you do get somebody who is sympathetic in many ways to President Trump, but also can be critical of President Trump, and the same with the guests as well. So I think that's an interesting show to listen to kind of get like a, sort of a middle of the road, both sides perspective. He says, Joe Scarborough says on his Twitter that just came out a minute ago, this immigration executive order was a disaster from the start. The president should start over, have agencies draft it more narrowly, and sign it. So it sounds like Joe Scarborough is not saying he's against the general idea of the executive order, or he's not saying the general idea of the executive order was a disaster. What Joe Scarborough thinks is that he thinks this executive order was crafted too fast or without enough care, and that he's recommending to President Trump, if you want to have this executive order, something like it take effect, go back to the beginning, rewrite it, and sign that. So that would be another option, interestingly, for the president to do. The president could just say, I'm not going to appeal to the Supreme Court. I'm going to forget this. I'm going to draft another executive order, which does roughly the same thing as this one, but maybe fixes some issues that the courts might be worried about. And he could sign that. Do I think President Trump would do that? Personally, this is just my editorializing, I don't think he would, because I think President Trump would see that as like conceding to the other side, and I don't think, if you've watched President Trump, that doesn't seem like something he likes to do. President Trump takes a stand and likes to stick with it, so I don't anticipate that happen, but that was an interesting tweet from Joe Scarborough. So I like to let you read what's happening on both sides. According to Stephen Dennis, and Stephen Dennis is a Bloomberg reporter, so I follow Stephen Dennis at Stephen T.D. Dennis, at Stephen T. Dennis. Stephen Dennis quoted a tweet from an ACLU official. So the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, is against President Trump's travel ban. And this might get some of you angry, but I will read it to you anyway as a survey of what's going on out there in Twitterland. Dale Ho, who according to Stephen Dennis is a ACLU official, sent out a tweet saying, this was in response to President Trump's tweet. So President Trump said, "See you in court, the security of our nation is at stake." Dale Ho of the ACLU responded on Twitter, "We already saw you in court. You lost, and we're not sick of winning yet, Mr. President." So that might get a lot of you angry out there, but just so you know, that's what the ACLU said. Let's see here. We have here a tweet from Bill Mitchell. Bill Mitchell hosts a show on every night here on Right Side Broadcasting. So Bill Mitchell tweets out, the left, this is according to Bill Mitchell, this is what he says, and he's at Mitchell VII if you want to follow him. And please watch his show, it's a really entertaining show. Bill Mitchell says, the left doesn't care about terrorism. They didn't give a damn when 49 gays were massacred in Orlando. Only Trump cared. So that's a tweet from Bill Mitchell. And that starts in 4 minutes, and we're going to be continuing our coverage while Bill Mitchell's show starts. So you can watch on both. You can open up two windows. You can keep our window open here and have Bill Mitchell's show open. Now, just so you're aware, Bill's show is, I believe, now Micah, if I'm right, tonight Bill Mitchell's show is was recorded a little bit before this ruling. So if you watch Bill Mitchell, okay, great. Thank you, Micah. The ruling came out in the middle of Bill Mitchell's recording tonight, so if you watch his show, you'll be able to see his reaction to the ruling. Maybe, I should correct myself. You might be able to see his reaction to the ruling in his show, so check it out. If you don't see his reaction, though, don't think Bill Mitchell is ignoring the ruling. If you don't see his reaction, sometimes because of the schedule of his guests and things like that, he might have to record his show a bit before it airs on our network. And so if you don't see his reaction to this tonight on his show, it's because it hadn't come out yet. But if you don't see his reaction, then I would watch his show tomorrow because he will have a reaction. And you could always follow him on Twitter because he's tweeting about it right now. But in general, Bill Mitchell's show is great. Watch Bill Mitchell's show. And you can watch both him and us in different windows, him in this coverage in different windows. And Bill Mitchell's show starts in just 2 minutes. Let's see here if there's any other. I want to get to your comments. I'm also just looking if there's news here. Let's read some of your comments. Let's get back to you guys. Love hearing your comments. We have some people. Liz in Norway and RSBN moderator wrote to me about President Trump's tweet. And Ronnie, you gave me a heads up about President Trump's tweet. Thank you so much. Herman Zagerman writes in, Sauerkraut Hammer on Fox was saying Trump was taken off guard by the district court ruling because it took 24 hours to file a brief. Mainstream media pundits seem to still believe that Trump is incompetent. I saw this live stream and turned sauerkraut off. Thank you for bringing us the news. You're welcome, Herman Zagerman, and thank you for watching and thank you for your comment. We have another comment here from Victoria, and Victoria says, this is getting ridiculous already. Good job. I think she's saying good job to us for covering it, and this is getting ridiculous, like the rulings against President Trump are getting ridiculous. She could be saying our coverage is getting ridiculous, but I don't think that's what she's saying. So thank you. You're welcome, Victoria, if you were indeed saying good job to us. Teresa Micey says, just heard the news, trying to check if ruling holds only for Washington State. My belief is no. The original temporary restraining order was a national temporary restraining order. The appeals court was ruling on whether this national temporary restraining order should be allowed to stand. From my understanding, the appeals court tonight said the district court ruling is fine, the temporary restraining order stands nationally. So the district court basically affirmed, they refused to overturn anything the district court said. So they kept the temporary restraining order in national effect. So as of right now, nationally, the travel ban is not being enforced. And just to repeat, our breaking news tonight is the appeals court said what I just said. They said the temporary restraining order on President Trump's travel ban is allowed to stand. President Trump could appeal this to the Supreme Court. His earlier tweet tonight suggests to me that he will appeal this to the Supreme Court. Also, remember, the ruling by the appeals court tonight was not on the legality of the travel ban. The federal courts have to rule on that in the future. The ruling tonight was just on whether the temporary restraining order, which is supposed to be in effect for roughly a couple weeks, is allowed to stand. And it's a defeat for the administration, this ruling, but at the same time, it is about the temporary restraining order, and it's not a ruling on the travel ban itself. But it does have the result that the travel ban cannot be enforced and will continue to not be enforced for a couple weeks at least. Thank you, Teresa, for your comment. Let's see, we have a comment from Master Maddie, and Master Maddie says, we still have the Supreme Court yet. And also, let's see, Master Maddie says, it was copied from Obama, so still don't understand why they are now obstructing it. So thank you, Master Maddie. We have a comment from Carrie Nelson. Carrie Nelson says, from the Star Tribune, I'm not sure which Star Tribune, Carrie Nelson says, in a unanimous decision, so according to Carrie Nelson, the decision was unanimous. The panel of 3 judges from the San Francisco-based 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals declined to block a lower court ruling that suspended the ban and allowed previously barred travelers to enter the U.S. So thank you, Carrie. So this new information, according to Carrie, is that that the ruling tonight was unanimous from the appeals court. But what that quote didn't make clear is that this ruling tonight upholds a temporary restraining order, but that doesn't permanently do away with the travel ban. All the temporary restraining order does says for a couple weeks until the legality of the travel ban is ruled on, the travel ban cannot be enforced. That's what the temporary restraining order says. We have, all right, Pete Tudsbury is telling me, check this Twitter feed. I'm going to check Pete Tudsbury. I hope you didn't just give a virus to my iPad. Let's see here. We have, this Twitter feed is of somebody covering the appellate courts. I guess you're saying I should check because there's some interesting information here. Let's see. So I will check this when I have a second, but thank you for the recommendation. I'll keep that open. Kevin Castamo says, Kevin Castamo writes, do you think Trump tweeting things is a good or a bad thing? Boy, lots of ways to answer this question. I think it's good the more transparent politicians are. I think it's good when politicians say what they're thinking and don't talk in political ease language, politician language, which doesn't really know let us know what they're thinking and is all designed to just, do what the polls say is the most acceptable thing. So I think it's great when politicians are straightforward. So now there are certain circumstances. Obviously, I wouldn't want President Trump or any politician to tweet out top secret information. So I think Trump tweeting things in general is a good thing. Now, we could get into an argument about whether particular tweets are good or bad. And if you want to ask about specific ones, Kevin, you can write back. So I will say this. I do have some sympathy for people who said, hey, when Trump is tweeted out in the last week, sometimes it sounds like he's questioning the integrity of the judges. So whether or not Trump meant that, I do think it's good to avoid those kind of tweets unless you are going to present evidence for your questioning the integrity of the judges. So those kind of tweets, I feel like maybe he could lay off from. And also any kind of tweet, I think President Trump has a lot of things he wants to do, and there are things he can do that really can help this country. For example, have corporate tax reform. And what I would not want him to do is send out tweets that alienate the other side, whether rightly or wrongly. If his tweets alienate the other side, perhaps that could put some of his legislation in peril. It could make it harder for him to pass legislation. So I think that would be a reason to avoid tweets that are going to make the other side upset. But at the same time, I appreciate him letting America know how he feels. It's so refreshing to have politicians doing that and not hiding everything, and also not trying to just take positions that he or she thinks America wants to hear or that are poll tested, and not using this politician-y language which refuses to actually put oneself on the line and say what one thinks. So it's a very good question, Kevin Costamo. There's a lot of complex answers we could get into whether we think President Trump tweeting things is a good or bad thing, but it's a good question. And so as I say, I think it's good for that reason, and I think it could be bad in specific cases for particular reasons. But, oh, and hold on, I'm getting something in my ear. Yes, Micah. Oh, wow. So Micah, so it sounds from like what Micah Messer, thank you, Micah, for producing, by the way, said in my ear that the White House is setting up to respond at a press briefing. So if this is true, and this response is going to be in person, say from Sean Spicer or someone, that would go against a report we heard earlier that the White House was not going to have was not going to have somebody in person respond. If they do respond in person, what we'll do is this. We will stop our coverage. We won't go away. We will temporarily stop saying anything during the White House response because we do things legally here at Right Side. So we don't steal feeds. So the White House owns that feed, and say CNN owns their feed and Fox owns their feed. It is incredibly expensive for us right now to buy such feeds. So we're trying to do the most we have with the money we have. So right now we don't own the rights to like the White House press briefings. So if we cannot broadcast them to you. But what will happen is, if this ruling happens, we will we will stop saying anything and we'll let you go watch that. But please keep our window open because we'll come right back after it's over. I'll just be right here and we'll come right back after that statement is over, and we'll talk about it and let you talk about it. So keep our window open. This is, in this day and age, what I think is really cool about news coverage this day and age is that we can give you news coverage. Oh, there's a statement coming on right now. Go watch the statement. I'm going to watch it. Welcome back. We are here at Right Side Broadcasting covering the breaking news, which is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals today ruled in favor of the temporary restraining order on President Trump's travel ban. So a federal court last week, a federal judge, ordered a temporary restraining order which would stop the travel ban from being enforced for a couple of weeks, at least. And the question today was the appeals court was deciding whether to get rid of that temporary restraining order and let the travel ban be enforced, or to let the temporary restraining order stay in effect. They sided against the Trump administration and for letting the temporary restraining order stay in effect. We just took a break because I initially thought that the White House was going to make a statement, but the person who ended up making a statement was the state Attorney General of Washington State, who basically headed up the case that was the lawsuit that was brought in federal court in Washington, and that lawsuit is the case that ended up resulting in the temporary restraining order. So an important statement to cut to. We didn't, and so maybe hopefully you watched that. And in terms of that statement, I didn't find anything like too much news in that statement. That basically they just said, yeah, we agree with the court's ruling, and it was like the civil rights issue and stuff. But nothing. We didn't really find out much more. We have been. It is unclear at this moment whether the White House will be making a statement tonight. So President Trump did himself send out a tweet, in case you missed it. This was 41 minutes ago, just one tweet, and it said, all in capital letters, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake!" Exclamation point, which suggests that President Trump is planning on appealing this to the Supreme Court, which he can do. So, but we don't know if there's going to be an official White House statement in person tonight. I would think the White House would release some sort of statement. There have been some other statements that came out that I want to get to in a second from like different politicians. We read one from Tom Cotton before, Senator Tom Cotton, who is very critical of the ruling. But also we want to hear from you while you're covering this. I'm sure you have reactions to this. So if you'd like to send in a comment, or you have a question, or you want to vent a little bit, feel free. I will read your question or comment on the air as long as it's clean. The two ways to do that, they're on your screen right now. Go to Twitter. My Twitter is @Lookner, @LOOKNER. Follow me if you'd like, but you don't have to. But go there and direct message me your question or your comment, and I will get it on my iPad right here. And also, the other way to reach me is steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. You can email me there. So I want to quickly just check my Twitter feed. I want to go to some of your comments right now. But before that, I just want to quickly check my Twitter feed, as I periodically do, just to make sure there's nothing like super breaking that I want, like any statements or anything from people. So there's a thread here summarizing the appeals court ruling. So later on, maybe what I'll do after we do this coverage is I'll kind of read some of that stuff and either come on later or come on tomorrow. Maybe I'll say this. Maybe I'll read up on the actual ruling, because it'll probably take a little while to read up on it after. Maybe it'll be a night for a late night live stream. We haven't done one of those in a while. Let me know if you're interested in that. Otherwise, maybe I'll come on tomorrow and talk about it. But I will do some more reading on it. Let's see. Here's a tweet from Jack Posobiec. Jack, Posobiec, very entertaining Twitter, very entertaining person, but he's on Twitter, he's very entertaining. His tweet says, a first-year law student would get expelled for handing in a ruling like the Ninth Court just did. That was Jack Posobiec's tweet. Let's see. This is from Mark Halperin. Mark Halperin, you might know because he's a very well-known political commentator. Mark Halperin says, opinion is carefully written. Neither the Circuit Court nor Supreme Court is likely to reverse it. The president might still prevail on the merits, but that's far off. So the president has two options for appeal here. He can appeal it. This was a 3-judge panel on the Circuit Court that decided this case. The president can either appeal to a larger panel of judges on the Circuit Court, or the president could appeal to the Supreme Court. But Mark Halperin seems to think that the president isn't likely to win either of those battles to get this temporary restraining order done away with. But remember this as well, important to keep in mind. Today's ruling is just about the temporary restraining order. The court system has not ruled yet on whether the travel ban itself is legal or not. That's to come. So President Trump could decide to appeal tonight's ruling, or President Trump could just decide, you know what, let the temporary restraining order stay in effect for a couple weeks. I'm just going to worry about the case coming up as to whether the travel ban itself is legal. But President Trump has said in his Twitter, he seems to imply that he's going to appeal this ruling that came out today. Let's just see if Bill Mitchell, he hosts a show on Right Side Broadcasting Monday through Fridays. Actually, if you want to watch it as well as this, you could open up both windows because he is live right now. Well, the show itself is running right now, so you could open up that and this in two different windows. And but his show is great. You should check it out. Bill Mitchell, though, tweeted out a couple minutes ago, the Ninth Circuit just gave congressional Republicans an excellent excuse to go nuclear on SCOTUS pick. So Bill Mitchell makes a good point, which is that Neil Gorsuch is the nominee, President Trump's nominee for Supreme Court. Has not been confirmed yet. So right now there's only 8 people on the Supreme Court. President Trump might feel that having Gorsuch on the Supreme Court confirmed would help in an appeal for the travel ban. And Senate Republicans might think that too. So perhaps they will really rush now to confirm Neil Gorsuch as a Supreme Court justice. And to get that confirmation through fast, they might have to do this thing called the nuclear option, under which they would say no filibusters are allowed in the Senate for Supreme Court nominees. Simple majority can hold. Because when there's a filibuster, it takes 60 votes to break the filibuster. But if they do the nuclear option, it goes back down to 50 votes plus the vice president are needed to get the nominee through. So Bill Mitchell thinks that they have a good reason to use that now because having Gorsuch be confirmed and be on the Supreme Court might be an important factor in whether President Trump is able to successfully appeal the appeals court ruling that happened today. So let's see if there's anything else to mention. Oh, and if there's a White House statement that comes out, or there's a White House statement either written or in person, we will let you know about that. Let's see here. Okay, so I want to get to your comments now. If you want to comment, the two ways to do that are below. Direct message me at @Lookner on Twitter, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Let's hear what you had to say. We have... Oh, so I just got a word in my ear from Micah that Trump posted on Facebook the same thing he posted on Twitter. So he's really getting that message out there tonight. We have Herman the German says, do you think Trump will wait for Gorsuch to get confirmed before they take it to the Supreme Court? We were just talking about that, Herman the German. I know you sent this before. Well, the question is, will he wait? I'm sure there will be some kind of plan. Either President Trump will talk to the people in the Senate, talk to the Republicans in the Senate, and they will make this plan as to whether they try to confirm Gorsuch first and then go to the appeal, or they do the appeal and not try to. So there will be a plan. I'm not sure what it will be. So we'll see what happens there. Let's see. We have Master Maddie says, let's see, you're linking. Sending me a link. I'm checking out the link you sent me, Master Maddie, but it's taking a long time to load. Okay, it's about Trump's tweet. So I would encourage people, if you want to read more about Trump, go to Trump's Twitter feed. You can read his tweet again. But I'm just trying to get to all these comments. So thank you, Master Maddie. Carrie Nelson. And just to you, Master Maddie, your comment, it mentioned something about Trump's tweet, but I'm not sure if it was in Trump's tweet. So I would have to sit here and think about it for a second, but I want to get to as many comments as possible. So sorry I didn't get fully into your comment, Master Maddie. Send another one if you'd like. Carrie Nelson says, here are the facts, according to Carrie Nelson. U.S. law is in place to protect United States citizens, not to control United States citizens. Anyone who is not a citizen of these United States has zero protection under the law of the United States of America. If you want the protection of U.S. law, you must be a citizen of the United States in America. Period. U.S. law is in place to control and prevent those who do United States citizens harm from coming in and doing harm to said citizens. That is Carrie Nelson's view. Thank you, Carrie, for your input. SNG4 says, can't Sessions do anything? Well, Sessions can't do anything because Sessions oversees the Justice Department, but all Sessions can do at this point, because of the way just the different responsibilities of the way the court system is set up. When the appeals court decides something, the only people who can do anything about that, who can change that ruling, are the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the only body in our court system above the district court. Only body in our federal court system, above the circuit court. So district court's the initial level. That's where the initial lawsuits gets heard and decided on. The court tonight was the appeals court, the circuit court. That's above district court. They can reverse district court decisions. And then the only body above the appeals court, the circuit court, is the one Supreme Court. So the only people who can do anything about this ruling right now, according to our Constitution and our system of laws and our judicial system, is the Supreme Court. That's who can do anything. Let's see. Teresa Micah shared a tweet. See, when you share a tweet with me, all I see is shared a tweet, and I got to open up the tweet and see what it says. So Teresa Micah wanted to know if you go to Judge Napolitano's Twitter feed, and Judge Napolitano, as you might know, is on Fox News a lot. He argues that Trump is in the right with his immigration executive order. So if you want to read more about that, go to Judge Napolitano's Twitter feed. I have been ignoring the emailers for a second, so let me go to my email and just make sure people haven't been writing in that I've been missing. Oh, we got a bunch of emails, so thank you. Let me just quickly try to get to your emails real quick here. Private Benjamin writes, Steve, do you think there will be riots if the temporary ban is upheld, or for that matter, riots if a permanent ban is put in place in the future? So I don't think there will be riots. So now, and this was, I think, maybe written before the ruling, but I don't think the temporary restraining order will cause riots, and I don't think it will cause riots if President Trump's travel ban is shot down. And personally, I think that's because the people today who seem to more want to riot are on the left than the right. I think if President Trump's travel ban is ultimately declared illegal, there will be some anger on the right and some disagreement. And just as tonight, I am sure there is anger and disagreement on the right about this appeals court ruling. But see, I feel, at least in recent years, you don't see the appeals court, you don't see the people on the right rioting like you do see people on the left. So I do not think there is going to be rioting. Now, let me say this. Here's a question. So thank you, Private Benjamin, for the question. Here's a question. Let's say the Supreme Court. So let's play this forward. Let's say Senate Republicans rush through and get Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. Get that confirmed. And the Supreme Court hears this appeal. And the Supreme Court says, you know what? We disagree with the appeals court. The temporary restraining order was wrong. So as of now, the travel ban is enforced again. Would there be protests and riots then? Very possible. I'm pretty confident there would be protests. Would they get into riot destruction territory? I don't know. But I could see that happening. So we'll see what happens. And there's more to come on this. So good question, Private Benjamin. Let's see here. See, when I backspace on my work email, it goes back a whole page and it doesn't go back to the inbox. It's so difficult. Okay, more emails. We have, this one is from Tracy Narkowitz, and she writes in, oh, thank you. She writes in we were wondering before, where were the 3 appeals court judges who gave this ruling tonight? Where they live, where do they work, where are they stationed? And Tracy sends in an article that says Honolulu, San Jose, and Phoenix. Let me click on your link. Yes, so thank you. We have Judge Michelle Friedland is working in San Jose. Judge William Canby is working in Phoenix, and Judge Richard Clifton is working in Honolulu. This is where they are all based. So thank you so much, Tracy, for that clarification. I appreciate it. We love to have you guys help us get these questions answered here and get the news out. All right, so there are some more emails. This is from Sandy Bowe. Sandy Bowe writes, do we know how many have already taken advantage of the restraining order and arrived? That was the intent of the last-minute announcement of the ban, to prevent a flood of questionable entries. These people knew President Trump's stance on this. He made no secret of it. Even screening guarantees nothing. I am prayerful that this ban is fully enacted. The 90 days should start as of the ruling date. I personally hold these judges responsible for their choice. Arrival, recognition, penetration, confrontation, and when Muslim population becomes a more majority minority, Islam gains control of a nation. So that is Sandy Bowe's comment on this. Thank you, Sandy, for your input. And one thing Sandy said that I wanted to say again, is that, so a worry Sandy has, and this is a worry the administration has too, they are worried that even if the travel ban is eventually found lawful, that in this couple-week period or however long it is that this temporary restraining order is in effect, that will give people who wish to do Americans harm time to get into the country. And Sandy is worried, and the administration is worried that while this temporary restraining order is in effect, that could allow people to come in this country who might do us harm who wouldn't have been able to come in otherwise. So thank you, Sandy, for your comment. Let me go back. More emails we have. This is from, let's see, Diane Birch. Diane Birch says, I think that Norway is right. Lawfare is going to be used a lot by liberals/socialists to battle President Trump. Also, George Soros should be tried for his many war crimes against humanity. Thank you, Diane Birch, for your view. I'm going to read this one out because I'll forget about it otherwise. Kane Nexus wants to know, says, I was watching the stream and I was thinking of enabling super chat during live streams might help you see questions better. This would also allow you to get funds to support RSBN. You might need a screen. So I will pass, one of the moderators, I'm guessing, will hear this and know exactly what super chat is. But just so people know out there, thank you, Kane Nexus, for the email. What I am not doing, I am not looking at the chat as we do this broadcast, because that would be, the chat questions go very fast, and if I was looking at the chat and trying to look at the camera at the same time, I would never see any of the chat questions. So if you're in the chat, just to clarify, if you ask a question in the chat, the other chat members will hear it, and that's fantastic. But if you want to ask a question to me on this show right now, the way to do it is either go to Twitter, go to my Twitter handle @Lookner, Lookner, and direct message me, or email me at steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. So thank you for asking that question or making that comment, Kane Nexus, because that clarifies that. And I'd be happy as we go along covering tonight. We want to hear your comments, your questions. Are you angry? If you agree with the ruling, that's cool too. Write us in why. Do you think President Trump will appeal to the Supreme Court? What do you think about President Trump's tweet? Will he tweet any more tonight? What do you think he might tweet tonight? Will he wake up in the middle of the night to go get a drink of water and remember this happened? He was having a nice dream that this didn't happen, and then he'll remember and he'll want to tweet out something right then. Could be. What do you think he'll tweet? What do you think the Supreme Court will do about this? Do you think this will make Senate Republicans want to confirm Gorsuch really fast and ram that through as fast as they can? So much going on with this, so much happening. Would love to hear your thoughts. This is not like the mainstream media here. We want to have you be a participant in this with us. So let us hear your thoughts on this. And to give it your thoughts, do what it says down there. Let me get, I still have a couple more emails I haven't gotten to yet. We have one from, and thank you so much for the emails and comments so far. They've been excellent, and the questions. Thank you to the moderators for moderating the chat so far. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Micah Messer for producing. Very much appreciated. So we have here an email. Okay, this is from Will, and Will emails in, the U.S. Court of Appeals from the Ninth Court is a federal court with appellate jurisdiction over the district courts and territorial courts listed above. Okay, so this is, I believe, what Will thinks about this court. Will says, headquartered in liberal heaven, San Francisco, the Ninth Circuit is by far the largest of the 13 courts of appeals, with 28 active judgeships. He calls it the Nutty Ninth in his email. He says, it's home to the Blame America Firster crowd judges. Will also says in our email that he thinks the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals He says, they hate our freedoms and they love anti-war protesters. The Ninth Circuit secretly hates America and is trying every day to destroy America's moral fiber. The Nutty Ninth hates Jesus and the Bible. They support affirmative action, flag burning, and gay marriage. They also support Cindy Sheehan and her lesbian feminazi troops' agenda to destroy America's moral fiber. The Ninth Circuit even has gay judges who play poker when there aren't any cases on the docket. The Ninth Circuit doesn't support our greatest president ever, Donald J. Trump. The 99th will burn in hell. They never rule in God Emperor Donald J. Trump's favor. Our greatest president emperor, Donald J. Trump, vows to put bears on that circuit's bench the first chance he gets. The Bears will take over and run wild on the Ninth Circuit one day. It's truthiness in that statement. So that is Will's comment about the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Will clearly has a strong view. We welcome strong views here. If you disagree with Will, let us know. We'll read that as well. And I periodically say this, and I think it's good to say this as I quote your comments or quote your questions or quote your tweets or whatever, or quote somebody else's tweets. When we repeat a viewer's comment or a viewer's question or somebody who tweets out on the internet, we repeat what they have said and let you see it. We're not endorsing it. We're not going against it. We just are repeating it. So we want you to hear what other people are saying and what other people are thinking. We want you to get a lot of views. So that's why we give these comments here. And we also want you to think for yourselves. We don't want to tell you what to think. So we're not going to say this person's right, this person's wrong. We think the more information you have, the better. So we're here when we read one of these comments, send us in your comments, whatever you think, and we will, as long as they're clean, say them and let you hear what each other are thinking. So thank you very much, Will, for the email. And there's one more email here I want to get to. Let's see. This is from JTK. Oh my gosh, Jitkun Dough. And Jitkun says, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Isn't it a disbarable offense for a judge to make a ruling which usurps the president's authority as defined under Article 2, and based upon information the judge has no lawful or need to know access to that datum by which said order was written? I call that legislation from the bench. So the one thing I'll say is that our court system has checks and our system of government has checks and balances, and the appeals court does have not just the appeals court, the federal courts have the ability to overturn or put temporary restraining orders on legislation passed by Congress or executive orders given by the president. That's a check and a balance. It's a check on the power of those two branches by the judicial branch. Now, you might think that in this case, the appeals court ruled wrongly and didn't apply the law correctly. So if you do feel that, that's fine. But they do, in theory, have the power to issue a temporary restraining order at the district level and to uphold that temporary restraining order at the appeals court level. They have that power. So if you have an issue with them, I think the issue you have with them is whether they've applied the law correctly. Okay, so let's go back here. All right, let's take a breath and summarize where we're at. Let's summarize where we're at. And I want to also say thank you so much for joining us so far on our coverage here. So we are covering the breaking news tonight that came out a little while ago, which is that the appeals court, hold on, let me take a drink before I summarize because I get dehydrated here. I forget to drink. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so we're summarizing here and we're covering a little while ago, the appeals court of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco ruled in favor of the temporary restraining order on Trump's travel ban, and they basically, in effect, refused to reinstate Trump's travel ban. So this temporary restraining order has been in effect since the end of last week when a Seattle federal judge ordered this temporary restraining order. While this temporary restraining order is in effect, the travel ban cannot be enforced anywhere in the country. And as I have said before, it's good to keep in mind, the ruling today was not about whether the travel ban itself is legal. The federal courts still have to rule on that. So the ruling today is just on whether this temporary restraining order should stay in effect, and the ruling was that, yes, it should stay in effect. And that temporary restraining order, as best I'm aware, is supposed to stay in effect for like a couple of weeks. And also, another piece of news that came out tonight was that a while after this ruling, I'd say about 15 minutes or so after this ruling, President Trump sent out the one tweet he has sent out so far about this ruling. It was a fascinating tweet. And that tweet was in all capital letters. And it said, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake!" Exclamation point. And the "see you in court" part seems to suggest that President Trump is planning on appealing this ruling today to the Supreme Court, which he has the legal right to do. So we'll see if that happens. And we are also waiting to see if the White House either comes out with a statement in writing tonight, like in a more an official statement, or if the White House, perhaps somebody from the White House makes a statement in person tonight. We don't know what will happen. Also, personally, as I keep saying, because I really am interested in this, I'm going to keep an eye on President Trump's Twitter feed tonight to see what he has to say about all this. So let's get back, and I want to check the Twitter, and I'm going to check the Twitter feed to see if any news came out. I like to sort of survey once in a while what different people are saying and whether any, say, politicians released any statements. But would love to get your comments. I'm guessing you have some strong feelings about the ruling tonight, whatever they might be. We've already heard some excellent comments and some powerful feelings from some of you out there. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask those too. Predictions are always welcome here too about whether President Trump will appeal this, about what will happen in the Supreme Court. And the way to reach me, if you want your comment to be read on this broadcast or your question to be answered on this broadcast, or I will attempt to answer it, you can either, one, go to Twitter. Go to my Twitter handle, @Lookner, @LOOKNER. If you want, please feel free to follow me. But you can direct message me on Twitter, and I will get your direct message here on my iPad. And I'm going to, I know we need to go sort of soon, but I want to go a little bit longer because I got some more emails and tweets here, Micah, if that's cool out there. And the other place you can email me, is steve.lookner@rsbn.tv. Steve.lookner@rsbn.tv, and I will get your emails and your direct messages here, and I can address them. So let me see, first of all, let me go back and see. I want to just quickly go to Twitter and see if we have any new kind of breaking stuff going on there. Oh, Marco Rubio tweeted out. No, actually, no. I'm sorry. That was a retweet that a friend of mine sent out from Marco Rubio. So I will not read that now, although it is funny. Let's see. Okay, Kelly O'Donnell. This is a very interesting tweet. This is from Kelly O'Donnell. And she is with, I believe, NBC or MSNBC. Let me see here. She is with MSNBC. And Kelly O'Donnell, this is her tweet. She said, according to her, that in a hallway chat, this is what President Trump said. According to Kelly O'Donnell, she tweeted this out. In a hallway chat, President Trump said, "It's a political decision that we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it. It's a political decision. It's a political decision that we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it." So according to Kelly O'Donnell, that's what President Trump said in a hallway conversation tonight. So that was interesting. We have, let's see if there's anything else out here. We have Jack Posobiec. Well, we already quoted from him. I just want to see if there's anything new here. Okay, so let me get to I just want to do a quick check and see if there were any new, statements and stuff. I'm not seeing that. There is the ruling out from the Ninth Circuit Court, and I will, when we're done here, read that. And I will, I promise to at some point, either tonight or tomorrow, we'll do some kind of live chat thing where you can talk about the ruling more. But let's now go and see. I know a few of you had commented here, and I want to make sure I get to people's comments. So Sean Ross said, actually, I don't know, Sean, what are you? Sean had said, could this be interpreted that the Democrats are standing up for terrorism now? Not sure what that was referring to, but I might have missed something you wrote earlier. So let's see. Obvious Troll, you said, how can the courts rule against the travel ban when precedent looks like this? And I think your precedent is, so I think you linked to a YouTube video, but I believe what you're saying is you think that there is precedent in the Obama administration for this kind of thing happening. This is from Obvious Troll. So I think what Obvious Troll is saying, and if I'm getting you wrong, let me know. You say, how can the courts rule against a travel ban when precedent looks like this? And I think the like this, I quickly looked at the video, was some kind of reference to the Obama administration's policies on immigration. We have, let's see, a couple more messages people just emailed in or sent in to me. Let's see. Luke says, you are very similar to the guy on the YouTube channel, The Coding Train. Are you related to in any way? I do not know who's on The Coding Train. I'll check it out. But unless a family member of mine is secretly on this site, The Coding Train, or the YouTube channel, I am not related to that person. David Robertson writes in, how in the world does a judge have authority over an executive order, and why didn't they challenge any of Obama's bad we have some, David, I'm trying to open your Obama bad executive orders. So that concern we heard from David Robertson is one we've heard from a few of you tonight. And this concern is, how can the judge have the authority over the executive order? And again, this is just one of the checks and balances our framers of the Constitution put in place. There are three branches of government: the executive, which is headed by the president, that enforces the laws and carries out the laws. The legislative, includes the Congress, that makes the laws, and the judicial branch, that's all the court system and judges. And the founders did not want any one of those branches to be too powerful, because they did not like, I'm guessing, and I should be more familiar with this, but I'm guessing they thought in certain countries the king was, for example, too powerful, and the executive branch in those countries was too powerful, and that was bad. So they wanted no one branch to be too powerful in this country, and so they instituted checks and balances. And as part of those checks and balances, federal court judges can block executive orders by the president if they feel that those are illegal. Now, they have to argue. They can't just block them on a whim. They have to give an argument as to why they think these executive orders violate the law. But that's part of their checks and balances power. So that's part of our system of government. So good question, David. Paul Stemmy says, Steve, do you think ISIS will take advantage of this ruling and import their guys as quickly as possible? Thanks. This is a very good question, Paul. So I don't know. I have no idea, does ISIS have this ability to just get people in the country if they want to? I'm guessing it's difficult to do that, even if they have people they want to bring in. So as to whether they can take advantage of this ruling, I have no idea. You would need a sort of expert on ISIS infiltration kind of things. But, I think the administration, if somebody from the administration in the office were here right now, they would say, look, this ruling that keeps this temporary restraining order going, every day we don't enforce this travel ban is a day somebody like from ISIS or some other bad person could come into the country. And they might say, the administration people, I think they'd say something like, look, this is a temporary restraining order. And so it's only temporary, it only lasts a couple weeks. So by this ruling will encourage ISIS and other bad actors to get their people into the country as fast as possible. Now, can they do that? I have no idea. I am not an expert on getting people into the country from terrorist organizations. But that is a worry that the administration has. Thank you for the question, Paul. We have SNG4 says, as much as frustrating as it sounds, not as frustrating as it sounds, not a surprise they ruled against. How can they possibly rule in accordance with the law while paying obeisance to California culture? So SNG4 thinks this appeals court, they are located in San Francisco, and they reflect California liberal culture, and he thinks that basically ensures that they were going to rule a certain way on this against the president. We have, if you can keep it, writes in, the Ninth Court is the most liberal of the courts, so the decision is not surprising. Donald Trump is historically litigious and will pursue legal options as far as he possibly can. Probably should have moved through on SCOTUS confirmation before signing such a controversial order. Meanwhile, we can wait for tax and Obamacare relief. So thank you for the court. Thank you for the court. It's been a long night, but a fun night and an interesting night. Thanks in a large part to your comments here. Not fun. I'm not saying the ruling itself was fun. I'm saying that your interaction and being able to share this with you and hearing your comments has been fun for me. So if you can keep it, there's a couple really interesting things. One really good point I think if you can keep it makes is President Trump has in his business past been litigious, and I think litigious has negative connotations. I don't want to say that. I know he's been involved in a lot of litigation, but that might be part of just doing the kind of business he did where he was doing it. But he has been involved in a lot of legislation, and he has not been afraid to sue someone. And candidate Trump said he would not be afraid to sue people, and so that makes. If you can keep it, say, if you can keep it strongly thinks that the legal options, as many legal options President Trump can pursue, President Trump will go ahead and pursue them because President Trump has no problem with trying to use legal action to help his cause. And if you can keep it also says President Trump should have moved on through the SCOTUS confirmation before signing such a controversial order. So it's an interesting point. I wonder, maybe President Trump didn't think this executive order was going to have issues in the courts. Maybe President Trump thought, well, if it does have any issues, we could always rush through the SCOTUS confirmation of Gorsuch. So, maybe President Trump had, it's an interesting question of, did President Trump have this possibility in mind that his executive order might be overturned, or there might be a temporary restraining order placed on it? And if President Trump did have that in mind, did President Trump have a plan to deal with this? And what's President Trump's plan? So I don't know. Interesting questions. I guess we'll see all of this in the next couple of weeks. We have another comment here. This is a comment here, so thank you very much if you can keep it for that comment. We have another comment from UT Solutions Michigan. And UT Solutions Michigan says, the left was foolish to fight Trump so hard on this early. A determined man such as Trump only gets better when facing stiff opposition. He'll find a way to win. So UT Solutions Michigan thinks Trump will find a way to win on this specific issue, the executive order. But I think part of what UT Solutions Michigan might be thinking is that that by opposing so much, by opposing the travel ban so much, UT Solutions thinks President Trump is determined and he only gets better when he's opposed. So it sounds like UT Solutions Michigan is saying something like, because the left has come so hard against the travel ban, that's going to just make President Trump that much more effective for the rest of his administration. We will see what happens. Let me just check and make sure I've gotten to all the things you sent me. So excellent comments, excellent questions. I really appreciate it. Okay, we're going to wrap this up in a couple minutes. I just want to quickly summarize what went on tonight and do a last Twitter check just to make sure there's not any huge news that we're getting before we sign off. So let me just do that real quick. Hold on one second. Okay, so to summarize, we have been here. We came on earlier, several hours earlier, I think, when the appeals court today, they said we're going to issue a ruling on the temporary restraining order on Trump's travel ban. They did issue a ruling. The ruling was against the Trump administration. The ruling said the temporary restraining order is allowed to stay. So as of now, there is Trump's travel ban executive order is not being enforced anywhere in the country. President Trump sent out a tweet where he seemed to suggest that he might appeal this to the Supreme Court. So that could be coming ahead. Whether or not he appeals this to the Supreme Court, there's also, today's ruling was just about this temporary restraining order. The federal courts also have to rule on the larger question of whether Trump's travel ban is legal or not. So that's all going to be happening. And then if they rule against Trump on that, President Trump can appeal that to both the appeals court and the Supreme Court. So there's lots still to be decided and lots to be determined and lots to be ruled on and argued about with this whole travel ban thing. So that's all happening. And I just want to see real quick here if we have any sort of last minute. I'm glad I checked because, Interestingly, Vice President Pence sent out 2 tweets in the last half hour, but they are not about the travel ban. He sent one out about, tonight we look back on the generations of African Americans who have defended and died for this country as far back as the hour of its birth. And so Vice President Pence is tweeting out, and I don't know, he might have been at some sort of, he looks like he's sent out a picture of him speaking, so maybe he's speaking at a certain event tonight. So if you want to know what Vice President Pence is tweeting out about, maybe go to his Twitter handle and check that out. Let's see here. I should also say later up, coming up tonight, so Wayne Dupree is on at 9 Eastern. Micah is... Do we have Nick Fuentes and Mike Cernovich on tonight, or are they not on tonight? I'm going to wait for Micah. There's a delay. Oh, so Raised Right is on at 10, so you should check that out. Nick Fuentes is on at 11, new show here. Very entertaining show, so check that out. All those shows are entertaining. So you could watch Wayne Dupree at 9, see what he has to say about this. Raised Right at 10, Nick Fuentes at 11. All those shows are on. And I should also say, if any kind of big emergency or big breaking news comes out, we're always here at Right Side going to let you know and cut in and inform you what's going on. But I shouldn't say cut in because we'll just go on in addition to those other shows. But plenty of cool Right Side broadcasting programming to watch tonight that you can watch. And also, we're going to see if the White House comes out with a statement tonight. We don't know if they're going to, but we will see. So I was saying before, I thought "see you in court" was funny for the president to say, and I was like, is it cool to say that? I thought it was funny for him to say. Christopher Hayes, who maybe a lot of you don't like, but Christopher Hayes is as an anchor on MSNBC. But here's what Christopher Hayes tweeted tonight. He tweeted, "I will say this, see you in court is legit the funniest thing a president of the United States has ever tweeted." So Christopher Hayes gives a shout out to President Trump and says it's funny that he tweeted that. And let's see, anything else here? So right now we have. Oh, there's one more message I'm going to say before we get off. Oh, UT Solutions Michigan says you all do a great job. Thanks for your service. Thank you for saying that, UT Solutions Michigan. Thank you for watching. So we now are going to sum up that there's been this appeals court ruling. As of tonight, Trump's travel ban is still not being enforced because the temporary restraining order is still in effect. There is sure to be stuff coming out about this in the next few days. Stay here at Right Side and keep watching us. We will keep you informed as to what's going on. We will give you the breaking news. You can watch all our different shows, and they will comment on this stuff as well. So thank you for joining us so much. Thank you all your viewers tonight for watching. Thank you all of you send in your questions and comments and your opinions. Really appreciate it. Really enjoy reading them and really enjoy sharing them with all the rest of you. Thank you to the moderators for moderating the chat. It's much appreciated. Thank you so much to Micah Messer for a great job producing tonight. Thank you to Liz Willis for texting me updates during the show. Thank you for Brad Savage for helping out with the production of this as well. Thank you, Brandon, who's been working in the office tonight, and Jake. So, thank you again all for watching. I'm Steve Lookner. If you want to follow me at Twitter, I'm at Lookner, at Lookner. I forgot tonight. I promised that whenever we do breaking news stuff, I would hear, and I'm covering breaking news, I would tweet about it. But we came on so fast tonight, I forgot. But in the future, if you'd like to know about breaking news that we're going to cover, follow me at Twitter at Lookner, and also follow Right Side's Broadcasting's Twitter feed, which is at RSB Network. Keep your eye on Right Side later tonight for all our great shows. And if you want to donate to Right Side, we always appreciate donations. Go to GoFundMe, GoFundMe.com/NextGenRSBN. I believe that's right. I got it right for a change. Thank you. For now, have a great night. We will keep you informed on the news as it comes, and stay tuned in future days for more on this and all of the Trump administration and everything that's going on in politics. There's going to be so much stuff happening. We're excited to bring it to you. So stay tuned for us. And for now, have a great night, and we'll see you soon.